Alex, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
Hey Jordan, thanks for having me on.
I'm excited. Let's pop right in. Baozza, delicious pizza stuffed bao bun. How did you come up with the idea for this product? Y'all started in China. Like, lay the foundation for me here to get a better understanding. Of like how you started this, where the idea came from, and then moving it over to the North American market.
Sure. So the precise founder or the precise kind of uh, creative story is actually a little bit murky. I was in a long car ride and people were talking about pizza and bao buns and like different things to put in bao, and I was just like, pizza baozi. I was like, you could call it baoza. And I actually made a deck on my phone in the car. It was like a 3.5 hour car ride. I was on a business trip with some clients in southern China when I was freelancing. And I actually still have the deck. I don't show it to that many people, but it ended up being the blueprint for later on. But more important than that is, my partner, Lauren Heinold, and myself. We both are long time, China expats. We're both Americans. We met each other in Beijing in 2010. We were both working in finance, both at different kind of investment banking firms. Um, and living and working in China for many years, bao is ubiquitous, right? So it's what everybody eats. Not everybody, but a lot of folks grab a bao or two for breakfast in the morning, and it's really more of a breakfast staple. And it's super cheap. It's ubiquitous. It's hearty. Fills you up. It's kind of the perfect kind of grab and go when you're in a hurry. And I was living in LA at the time. I was on a stint, just living in Southern California, LA, my home, and I actually went back to LA after this trip, and I learned how to make bao on YouTube. Funny enough, and I was able to stuff the baos with pizza fillings, everything from mozzarella, tomato sauce, pepperoni. I did a barbecue chicken, and I started really doing it more with my friends, kind of collaborative. So we had my birthday party one year, and we had a rolling station. I got some rolling pins, and we got steamer baskets, and we had a bow party, and some of the creations were phenomenal. Everybody kind of brought their own toppings, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. At the time, I was working on other stuff, but I kept making these and I kept at it, and I started serving them to my Airbnb guests who would roll in to LA from including places like China, and I just start sampling it out, Super Bowl parties, things like that. And it was in I think around 2015 is when Lauren and I started talking. uh, my background in food came through kind of my investment banking work. We were doing kind of master franchise agreements for U.S. based food retail brands. Brands like coffee shops and Johnny Rockets and other kind of emerging QSR and things like that. So I understood kind of the Chinese franchising landscape pretty well. And meanwhile, Lauren had left investment banking, and he had actually become a co-founder and a partner in a restaurants group in Beijing, restaurant management group. And so we kind of got together, and in 2016 we made our move. I actually moved back to Beijing to get Baozi off the ground, and we envisioned it originally as kind of a street food concept. So
Mm.
everybody knows us for CPG. We're in the freezer aisles. We sell frozen pizza bao buns. But we actually started as a restaurant concept in Beijing, China. So that's kind of how it got to where it to that point, and we sort of evolved that. We got some investment early on from some angels, including Mark Cuban, back when we had about a 24 seat little tiny joint in the Beijing Hutongs. We were able to parlay that into some flagship retail locations. One, actually two in Shanghai, one of which was a franchise store. We had delivery satellites, kind of ghost kitchen stuff as well. And we actually had to move into frozen production in order to supply ourselves. to supply our stores. And the reason being that the baos are handmade. They also require a lot of lead time in cooking them because they have to be proofed. They contain yeast. It's a really a breaded product. And so, there would be days when, we'd be slammed. I mean, we'd have lines, out the door. And guess what? If you've got your guys in the kitchen, I mean, they can only go at a certain speed, and then you have to wait, proof, steam the buns. It was kind of a nightmare from a kitchen standpoint. And so, bringing them in pre-frozen, re-steaming them, we had almost zero loss in terms of like the quality because of the way that
Wow.
bao actually freezes. It's almost a superfood in the way that it freezes because of the moisture in the dough. And we therefore were in production using Chinese co-packers. So we actually learned all the industrial production of bao buns kind of out in the bush, out in local Chinese co-manufacturers. And if you're making it in a co-manufacturing facility, you can also then slap a box on it and start selling CPG products. So when COVID hit us in China, it really took the retail stores pretty much out of play for us. We knew it was going to be a very, very hard slog to survive in retail. And we kind of made, you could call it a pivot, but really just more of a re-emphasis toward frozen. And that's been our business ever since. We haven't looked back. And then really toward the end of 2020 is when I made my move back to the United States, and we decided to give the US market a run. Launched in 2021, and kind of here we are today.
I love it. Now, the product, right? If people are in China are used to eating bao buns, what was that like when you came to the US? Was it a lot of Chinese Americans that you maybe marketing to, connecting with? Or was it once you got into, the Walmarts and that you found that, oh, hey, people of every ethnicity or age group are walking down the aisle finding it and going, hey, I want to give that a try. How did you approach that, or I maybe think it was going to play out, and then how did it actually play out?
Yeah, you know what? Great question. I mean, it's a phenomenal question. We are a very interesting case in kind of cross-cultural notions or cross-cultural kind of perceptions of food. And so we came into the US having been selling in China. And, in China, we're actually very limited in our target market because of our price point. We use cheese. Anything that uses dairy products in China, you can automatically assume that the cost is going to be very high. So we've always been selling very expensive bao buns at roughly 8 to 10 renminbi each, in a market where bao buns typically go for anywhere from 1 to 3 renminbi. So the Chinese consumer has this natural barrier in, constantly asking themselves, like, how can you be 3 times or more expensive than the street buns? And they love our taste. A lot of Chinese love cheese, they love pizza. And so taste and experience has never been our issue. It's just pricing, right? So pricing power in a culture where you're really effectively competing with the cheap staple food is very difficult. So we have our fans, we have our diehards, and it's a small subset of kind of the Chinese consumer stratum, but we do well within that. Coming to the U.S. was very interesting. We kind of assumed that our fans would ultimately be very coastal, multicultural, kind of Asian Pacific heritage. We figured it would be an easy sell for us. And what we found, interestingly enough, I think we do very well, sure, with people who know bao buns, right? Who really understand that. But we've also found that Americans kind of, funny enough, they know bao buns. A lot of them do, not everybody. We did some market research before we came into the market that said, roughly 50% of Americans know what a bao bun is to some degree, at a very minimum degree or higher. And so about half don't. And so we were kind of concerned there. We're like, well, what are people actually going to think about this when they see it? What we found, funny enough, though, is that the pizza side of it kind of sells itself. And when you see pepperoni on the box, game over, right? And so what we've actually seen, funny enough, is some of our best selling stores are really in kind of the American heartland. Places like Pikeville, Kentucky, and southern Colorado, and Louisiana, and Mississippi. No joke. So um, we say never bet against pizza, and I think we kind of appeal to lots of different groups for different reasons.
I love that. Never bet against pizza. I think that's a life motto for me. So that's
Hmm.
good. Um, that is so cool and great to see too when you can have this, you know, prediction to say exactly coastal towns, multicultural places, this and that, and then you find out, oh, it's can't stay on the shelves in Kentucky. It's very, very interesting. Now, y'all are doing something also I find very interesting. You shared with me before the show. You've actually got these vending machines. Or you speak to me a little bit about the hot vending machine, what this all is, and how you're using that to market the product and I mean get people to be able to get it as well.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, so, our roots were in retail stores. We started really as restaurant people. Our objective in China was to kind of elevate the street bow experience, make cool little funky shops and, more of a premium type of experience within that and do pizza. Therefore, in doing so, therefore, also bring pizza to the street. At least in China, pizza is more of a sit down thing or maybe a delivery thing, but people don't eat it on the go because they don't fancy the pizza by the slice for a lot of reasons. It's messy, it's whatnot. So our view was to try to bring pizza to the streets. That was our original mission. And funny enough, even though we don't run stores anymore, we think we see vending as kind of a continuation or a continuum of that original mission. And we are big fans of going to the customer, going to the streets. And I think that a lot of categories, when you're selling into grocery, which is now really our core business, a lot of different categories of products have more optionality in terms of how you can get your product in front of people. Some brands have products that are shelf stable and lightweight. So guess what? Those are great D2C items. You can literally box it and fly it to somebody's home. Some brands are, like beverage, you can build a display where you can stack a bunch of your uh, cases and things like that, right? Um, we sell in the freezers. We're kind of like a hot pocket, and we're playing with a significantly lower budget than Hot Pockets was playing with in the 80s and 90s when they were running TV commercials down your throat every single afternoon when kids were getting off of school for 20 years, right? Um, but anyways, so we always are looking for ways to get out of the freezer and to the customer somehow. And one way we do that is with our street team. So Baozza, if you go to the 626 night markets in Southern California, and some select music festivals, we have a great street team. So we do our best to get out into the community a little bit more. But then vending is like kind of taking that on maybe another level. So if you figure a vending machine can go to a college campus, it can go to an airport, it can actually go to a grocery store, even, up in front. There's a lot of different places where they work, not everywhere, right? But our vending machine is big. It's very, the kind of the graphics and the touch screen and LED screen. It's a very lucid way to kind of get to know our brand. And of course, you can order a hot Baozza that's ready in about 30 seconds. So we see that as a way to try and bring our brand and help people get to know the brand and the product um, in more places than just kind of incidentally walking down the freezer aisle. And the cool thing about vending too is if you do it right, Um, you get you're effectively cutting out the retailer and you're cutting out the distributor. So there's actually there's a real business case for vending. We do see that with a number of players. Fresh food, hot food vending is very new in the U.S., and I would say we're among the best positioned. But that's kind of our vision then for vending.
And when it comes to deploying that and, using a street team and, some of these things, is that a selective market thing? Is that where you're going, okay, LA, some other mass population areas, even though you're seeing a ton of velocity when we're looking at, some mid America stores? How do you approach, you know, really resource allocation when it comes to things like deploying vending machines, display, having street teams going out, like all of those marketing methods? Um, how are you all approaching that just from a resource standpoint?
Resources are everything, at the early stage. And I would say that for a brand at our scale and revenue and just footprint as it is, I mean, today we're sold in 50 states. So, you take this playbook that you see all over Twitter, you see it all over LinkedIn in kind of the CPG world. It says, start small, play in your own backyard, expand geographically. Well, guess what? In CPG, that's already out the window. I mean, day one, our first ever customer was Sprouts, and they wanted us in 375 stores. Um, the right answer was to tell them yes and to move ahead. It's very, very hard, I think, in frozen distribution to limit yourselves geographically. And we also have the type of product that needs to move volume. So we've done a lot of this in a very resource constrained manner, and we just because we've had to. And so when we look at other marketing activities, whether it's street team, whether it's vending, our goal, is an example with our street team. A lot of people don't know this. If you are at the 626 markets, or even these guys, they went on Good Morning America. They operate independently. So we actually have a partnership with a great team, husband and wife team. They're very, very professional operators, and we basically supply the products to them at cost. We set them up with all the branding and all that stuff, the design and all sorts of things, and they basically buy our product at cost. Um, and they make all of the money from all of the events. They mark them up quite a bit. So our goal is to try and empower others to help carry the brand forward. They're very respectful and very strong ambassadors for the brand, but the end result of that is that all we need to do is get them pallets. So we get them whatever, a number of pallets. These guys move like 3,000 buns in a weekend. But it doesn't require, from a resourcing standpoint, it doesn't actually require our team to get out in the field. We've done all of that, by the way. People are like, "Oh, you should get your hands more dirty." Oh, they've been very, very dirty. We've done the festival circuit. We've done pop-ups. We've done all sorts of catering and all sorts of just really hands-on stuff in the early days when we were in Beijing. So we're no stranger to that, but we are always looking for the maximum impact. Vending is a case similarly where we can be building our own fleet, or we can be in partnerships. There's a lot of different types of partnerships to be had in vending, and we put it this way: CPG always comes first, and it always will. It's our bread and butter. It's what we want to really lead with, and we think there are ways that we can actually stand up vending, tackle different markets, different pockets, different kind of distribution and management pipelines, with partners, with franchisees. There's a lot of different ways to play in vending.
I like the I really like that setup with the street team where you have essentially uncapped incentive structure for the street team. You're selling it wholesale, but then it's essentially they can make their money and you're able to have a great marketing tool. Somebody out there who's not just getting an hourly wage and is on their phone the entire time. They're also on that hustler mentality. They're there to make their money
I
that
can
weekend. And that's such a
we do
stark
the
difference.
we did the backwards math. So when we total up the total deliveries to them that they sold through at the events, and we look at the pricing they sell through, it's like No joke. They're probably making, I mean, their side hustle, this is a side hustle for them. Um, their side hustle is like orders of magnitude bigger than our founder hustle, or even our bottom line at Baozza, right? So it's sometimes that's what it takes.
I love bets like this though from a marketing standpoint where there's a fixed downside cost but the upside is unlimited. And with regards to okay, they moved the units, great, they're ordering more next week and you just have that fixed cost, but now how many fans is that creating? Super fans. Also, if they then see it in the store when they go, they see it at a lower maybe lower price. Oh, great, I just had that last week. Like those types of bets that can just have uh, super controlled downside with the unlimited or massive upside like that to me is like push my chips in on those anytime I see them. You know what I mean? So very very cool. Uh, Now, what's next for Baza? Is it just pounding pavement, retailers? Um, is that the game plan that y'all are really leaning into? I know you're in the middle of a fundraising. Um, yeah, how what's the next six months to a year look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that the first thing is, you know, uh, we're seeing things happening in the market that I think are really unique. We actually came into the US market in the summer of 2021. So this is a period right after, or right during the time when people were starting to get vaccines. So you went from from like a kind of a generational high in frozen food into kind of a more of a structural normalization, if you will, in terms of volume declines, things like that. And then in the recent year or so, you've seen a consumer extremely stung by inflation and really trying to optimize and economize a lot of their purchase decisions in grocery. So we're really focused on positioning ourselves for a lot of that. And we're selling two packs. So we're looking at different pack factors. Or we put it this way, at a high level, our focus in the next year is really on, same store performance. We've had a lot of distribution growth, probably abnormal distribution growth in our first 18 months ever in the United States. We got to 4,600 stores, and that's cool. But it's only cool if you can really stay in those stores. We're already looking at a couple accounts that are reasonably at risk. Some of which realistically not our fault. It's just kind of the way the industry goes. But our focus is really trying to hold and maintain doors and really grow same store growth or same store velocities, I should say, over the next 12 months. I think we'll get a lot more bang for our buck with that. And so really it's a kind of a maniacal focus right now on how can we make sure that our product is on shelf in a manner that goes with both of those trends, and looking at kind of a little bit of a more of a deepening of our shelf strategy, which we never really did. We launched with 5 flavors and we only had one single SKU per flavor, which was 2 packs, sold anywhere from $4.99 to $5.99. And so in this market, we're kind of learning that the benefits of that. We see a lot of trial. There's a lot of good things going on there, but we're also seeing a lot of the constraints. We get emails almost every day from people asking when we're going to be putting these in a larger pack size at a more reasonable price. We get that email at least maybe once or twice even per day. So, trying to fit into where the US consumer is going to be in the next year, I think is going to be a really important move for us. Probably rationalizing some of our SKU count and flavor count. I think it was a mistake to probably launch with 5 flavors, even though the buyer asks for it and we didn't want to turn them down. At the end of the day, the buyers they're not genies, right? They don't magically predict the future, right? So, we're going to probably rationalize our shelf plan, I think, pretty considerably, have a massive focus on driving same store velocity, and also expanding into some new channels. So the first we're going to be doing is club, Probably should have done that one a little bit earlier, but I think we've got a great opportunity in club. The second is we'll be launching singles, potentially slackable singles. So all of a sudden that puts you right in the zone for C stores. Probably within the next 12 months, we're going to be launching a breakfast line, which, funny enough, we're called Baozza, like pizza bao. From what we see and what we hear and sort of what we know about the market, there's a very real chance that the breakfast baos could potentially just crush our pizza bows like on sales, right? We could be doing a bigger business in breakfast than we are in pizza. So we want to at least give that the shot that it needs, and really kind of within that trying to raise some capital. It's been a bit of a tough year in the capital markets for everybody. We were out in the market, end of last summer, kind of right around this time, trying to raise capital, and weren't able to do it. And my partner and I, we're not goofballs. We understand capital raising. We've done several rounds already with Baozza. We raised money for other companies, and I'm telling you, this is a very, very tricky market. So really, what we've done in the past, half a year, 6-8 months, is have kind of a more of a deep dive focus on our own margins. So we've done a lot of things to um, really build out a lot of the under the hood stuff to kind of set the stage. And if we can add a little bit of fundraising on top of that, I think we'll be in a pretty nice position. We're nearly solvent at this point. So a lot going on, but that's maybe just a little snapshot of some of it.
I love it. I love hearing, the behind the scenes and seeing what's coming and hearing the plans, and then I'll be following up and watching the journey. So, Alex, thanks so much for coming on. People who want to connect with you, where's the best place they should go?
Um, Probably just email me, alex@baozza.com. I
There
read them
you
all.
go. Amazing. Alex, thanks so much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jordan.
All righty, everybody. That's it for this episode. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Shelton. I'll catch you next time.